Is Tetairoa McMillan a dream pick for the Denver Broncos at number 20? That is what a top mock draft is saying, and we're going to break it down on the DNVR Broncos podcast. Plus, we're joined by our draft expert, Fran Duffy, to break down how free agency changes the Broncos draft plans, and we're starting now. We're throwing it back to start today's show. We're going to start with some punter talk on the DNVR Broncos podcast. The OGs know punter talk in the first segment is a throwback here. And we're going to do it with Ryan Koenigsberg, Henry Chisholm. You hear behind the camera, Zac Stevens rocking and rolling with you from the Toyota Lounge, driven by your local Front Range Toyota stores. We are 23 hours away from March Madness kicking off. How we doing, fellas?
I feel great. I do have a bone to pick with you guys, but you know, just let me know when there's space for that.
Hit us with the bone.
All right, so let's talk about yesterday's show.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, gee. Let's save that for the end. People,
I can't wait till the end.
No, let's knock it out now.
No.
Really?
No. I think we're gonna lose people if we do right now.
No, they're
I
gonna
couldn't believe how much they hated it.
Feel the
of
energy.
course
Feel the
I almost
energy.
cursed. All right, listen. What are you guys talking about? Like, how is it? Even bringing up the topic is asinine in nature.
How?
Because
Taking care of your best player? Taking care of a
you
generational
took care
first
of him
ballot?
last year.
Really taking care of him.
That's not how this works, bro.
It is how it
when
works.
you sign a player early,
Yeah.
you're making a bet. So then you won the bet.
Yeah.
So if you bet on Kansas to win the championship and they make the Final Four and you're like, a couple steps away from hitting it big, you don't take all of your potential winnings and then double them down on the bet.
You're not at a casino. You're dealing with real people right now.
You won the bet.
You're dealing with real people.
That's what you did though. You bet on Pat Surtain and won. You don't cancel that out and ruin the fact that you won the bet by giving him more money already.
So there's a couple of things now that we're just diving in because people absolutely hated this yesterday, and I did not think coming into this that this was going to be like that hated. I truly did not, because this isn't like an anti-Broncos thing. This is a pro-Pat Surtain thing. And so I got so much heat from it. And then some people started coming to my side and helping me out and giving me little tips and reminders. And I was reminded, and shout out to the Madden chat for reminding me of this. So I mentioned yesterday how there's been a precedent set of doing this in the NFL recently. Josh Allen had it done a month ago. Patrick Mahomes has had it done, I think, twice now, where they just give him more money as the contract goes.
That's just kicking the can down the road,
and you would be doing that with Pat Surtain.
Sure.
You would be able to kick this down one more year as well, so you get the exact same thing. But... And then Henry's argument was, well, that's quarterbacks. That's a different thing. You can't compare quarterbacks to any other position.
Fair.
Okay, fine, fair. Shout out to the Madden chat for this one, because I'm going to totally blow that argument up right now. Last year, Christian McCaffrey got, they made him the highest paid running back when they did not need to. Out of the blue,
How'd that work for
they
him?
gave him $19 million per year, made him the highest paid running back, just because they thought he deserved it. So boom, there you go. The quarterback thing is
How did that work
exploded.
out for the 49ers?
Just wait. 3 weeks ago, the Eagles did this exact same thing with Saquon Barkley. He is signed for the long term. In fact, he just signed a contract with them last year, just like Pat Surtain. But what did Saquon Barkley do? He went out and he rushed for 2,000 yards. You know how many times that's been done?
Like 4?
8.
Okay.
It's been done 8 times. You know how many times a cornerback has won Defensive Player of the Year? 7. So Pat Surtain did something more rare than Saquon Barkley. The Eagles did this, and you know how people in Philadelphia reacted to it? From my understanding, you would actually have a better pulse on this. I think they loved it. They said, yes, we're taking care of our guy.
That's
Let's
crazy.
do it. And that's what the Broncos should do with Pat Surtain. That's my argument there.
I said the same thing that Eagles fans should be saying, which is what I said about your argument about Pat Surtain, which is, why would you do this? Why would you do this? It doesn't help you right now. Pat Surtain, you guys agreed to a contract. I love PS2 as much as anyone. Everyone came to an agreement. You don't have to just undo it and redo it. What would be the point of signing him last year then?
Because you thought it was a good
We
deal. Then
always talk about sign a guy to a deal early, because you're betting on them.
Yes, but then here's what's important for you to understand about my argument. You only do this if a guy goes out and has a defensive player of the year. He has way exceeded that contract already, especially with more guys getting paid. Like by the start of this season, I bet the cornerback market's at $32 million per year for the top paid guy. Yes, you do have Pat Surtain on an incredible deal, but as an organization, you have to realize, like, this is too good of a deal. He is too good. We need to value him. So you're not doing this for a guy. Let's say you sign Nick Bonito for $23 million and he goes out next year and has 14 sacks. You're not saying, you're playing exactly how we thought you were. We're just going to give you more money, or you exceed a little bit. If he goes out and has 28 sacks next year, then I'm probably going to have the same argument. Like, if you have that good of a season where we're talking about he's one of 7 cornerbacks ever win Defensive Player of the Year. He's one of 2 players in Broncos history to win Defensive Player of the Year. He didn't just play well. He played, I think the odds were like 50-1 that he was going to win Defensive Player of the Year before this past season. Like, he blew the expectations out of the water. That's the rare situation when you do this.
To me, he played he played exactly how I expected him to.
You expect him to win Defensive Player of the Year?
I mean,
did you bet on the 50-1 odds for him to win Defensive Player of the Year?
Real quick, that has something to do with everyone else. I wasn't thinking about Defensive Player of the Year. I expect Pat Surtain to be the best corner in football, and he was.
Yeah, I agree.
And so, to me, I'm never against the guy getting his money when his time comes. When his time comes. His time came. He got his money. His time will come again. He'll get his money again.
But in 9 months, that price is already like it's just a bad price.
Yeah, it is what it is.
You should have waited then. We knew it was good. But
and that's why I say in this rare instance, the organization understands it's a bad price. Go help him out.
To me, it just sets a bad precedent that you can always renegotiate your contract, and I don't like that.
But I've laid out how the organization would say, we will redo your contract. Marvin Mims, we just give you a contract extension, let's say. We'll redo this, and 1 year in from this, if you go out and you win Offensive Player of the Year or MVP, then we'll redo it. But if not, then no.
But you're still opening Pandora's box.
I don't think so.
Real quick, the Saquon and Christian McCaffrey deals were both extensions. So Saquon got 2 years added on for $41 million. So it wasn't we're keeping this all the same, just raising the numbers. It was we'll reward you by tacking 2 years, 20 on at the end. So the equivalent for Pat would be saying, we've got this 4-year deal. Let's make it a 6-year deal. And those can be whatever, $40 million in each year.
Yeah.
Not just a straight like, hey, let's just bump up the pay on what we already have.
But they didn't need to do that right now.
No, but players sign extensions all the time.
Then sign Pat to a $40 million extension. I just
2 years on 40.
That's my argument.
Yeah, to me, I just think that you should be rewarded when you made the right call. The Broncos made the right call. They signed Pat before this last season. They could have just waited, and then yes, they would have had to pay him $30 million a year that Derek Stingley just got. But they didn't. They were proactive about it. They got it done, and that affords them $10 million to go spend elsewhere.
Sure. But one final thing, before we wrap this up, it's also, in this, there's also a chance Pat comes to them and says, can I have more? And Henry said if he does that, that changes his argument, and he's more open to that. So that's part of this that I didn't mention yesterday. And then there's one more thing too. You don't necessarily have to, when saying this, make him the highest paid cornerback, but bump him up a little bit, or some at least. So there is middle room there as well. But I just have to shoot down a few comments in the Toyota chat really quick, because Denver Rouch says, move on. Jess Candy says, let it go, Zach. I did let it go. Ryan brought it up, so that's on him.
I brought it back, so I had to get it off my chest. I just thought it was an insane conversation, to be completely honest. What if I put it this way? You buy a house for $250,000. The next year it's worth $400,000. You don't have to sell it. Like, you just hold on because you still have that value, and that value just keeps growing.
Yeah, that's a unanimous object.
Inanimate.
Inanimate? Oh, I definitely thought it was a U. That's an inanimate object, just like the other example you brought up. We're dealing with human people. We're dealing with
it's not
people.
like this is inhumane. Only paying him 20 whatever million.
Yes, but and that's something that people said. You gave him $96 million last year. Sports money is fake. It does not relate to any of us. We can't relate to this. This is a different world than we live in. You have to separate yourself from what you feel like $96 million is from what these guys think it is. Like what? Because the exact same conversation happens with quarterbacks. It's like, why the hell is Patrick Mahomes taking $50 million, $60 million? These top quarterbacks demanding top money when they could live for the rest of their life the most beautiful life ever at $20 million per year.
Let me take my
real quick.
Okay,
going back to the
money.
house analogy, it would be like
I know. I was just about to rectify my thing, which is like the person who sold the house coming back and be like, well, now it's worth $400,000. Can I please have $150,000? Well, it's like, no, I already bought this. I own it now for $250,000.
Yes.
I wish there was houses for $250,000.
But you live with that guy. You live with the guy that used to own it, and he's with your building, and you're trying to do right by him.
For him.
Yeah, he's like the guy who mows your yard or something.
Jeez.
And again, he's still making so much money.
Jeez.
And again, like, it's just one of those things. Outside of quarterbacks, you've never seen somebody just be like, yeah, we'll just give him the raise.
I just gave you two examples.
But those were extensions, though. Remember, those are 2 years added on. That's a new deal that's added on at different numbers. The numbers these years did not change. It's not we're giving more money for those.
Well, then just give him tack on 2 years of $40 million a year, where the market value would be.
I would love it.
Sure.
Okay, so we will wrap this conversation up. But one final thing: when this happens this year, just save your apologies and bring them to me.
I'm not going to apologize to you. I'm just going to criticize the Broncos.
No. Well, then just say, Zach, holy you were right. Impressive.
That's not what this conversation is.
That is what it's about. Oh my goodness.
The conversation has never been about whether or not they're going to do it. It's whether or not they should do it.
Oh my
So them doing it doesn't mean they should have.
Oh my goodness. We got to move on because we got our draft expert, Fran Duffy, coming on to join us in just a minute. But before he does, I got to give a shout out to our friends over at Mando, and some people in the Twitter chat are like, wow, Zach's fiery with this conversation. You know, if I didn't have Mando on, I might be smelling after, sweating a little bit from that fiery of a conversation. And the good thing is with Mando, you can put it everywhere. Parts, pits, grundles, ball sacks, the tush, legs, feet. You can put it anywhere that you want to smell good, which is pretty much everywhere. And they have so many different smells. If you want to go for, let's say you're going to go and smell or taste some whiskey. How about bourbon leather to go with the whiskey? Clover Woods, if you're taking a hike, you want to smell like the outdoors. If you're going to go visit Mount Fuji, well, they have a Mount Fuji flavor. And if you're going to go play a sport, pro sport is one that would be perfect with that. And over at Mando, they're going to hook you up by getting $5 off their starter pack. And their starter pack comes with solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free mini products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. And so you put that together with the $5 off, you're going to get about 40% off your starter pack if you use code DNVR over at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. And please support our show and tell them we sent you by using that code DNVR. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence with from head to toe with Mando.
And shout out to our friends over at Every Plate. Every Plate's the best. They've got all sorts of restaurant level deliciousness. The crispy buffalo ranch chicken, the cheesy Mexican street corn hash. I've never actually had a hash, I don't think.
Really?
In
either sense of the word?
In the Every Plate sense. I've never had a hash. Because I've had like hash browns, but I feel like a hash means it's all like kind of, mixed together.
Yeah.
That's great.
It sounds great.
Yeah.
Where do you go for a good hash? Every Plate is where you go for a good hash. They've got all sorts of different stuff. Whatever you're looking for, they've got it. You'll spend less on these flavor-packed homemade meals than you would on your normal groceries or at a restaurant. You can cook if your issue is that you cook the same things over and over. They've got all sorts of different stuff. It all takes 30 minutes or less. Very easy. And what are you waiting for? Dig into these flavor-packed meals your household will love. New customers can enjoy the special offer of only $1.99 a meal. Go to everyplate.com/podcast and use DNVR 199 to get started. Applied as discount on first box, limited time only.
And shout out to Josh in the Toyota chat who says, I actually bought Mando because of you guys and absolutely love it. I will never buy another deodorant again. So use that code DNVR over at Mando. That first first segment. I loved it. That was fun going back and forth. Although, Ryan, you did ruin it because we didn't get punter talk in the first segment. Yep. And we'll do that really quick before we're joined by our guy, Fran Duffy. The Broncos have a punter. Maybe. This morning they signed Matt Hack.
Pronounced Hawk.
Hawk. That's better. Yeah. Matt Hawk to
way better.
A 1-year contract for $1 million. He's a lefty punter, so that's one big thing you need to know about him. And the second thing about Matt Hawk is...
Not to be confused with his brother, Mike.
Yes, Mike
Hawk.
Yep, that's why I stopped. I didn't fall into that, but you fell into your own trap there. Matt was... Matt was with Darren Rizzi, the Broncos' new special teams coordinator, to start his NFL career and was with him in Miami for a couple of years. So that's our punter talk.
There you go.
Broncos still going to bring in another punter, though.
So would you say the Broncos brought Hawk to a facility?
Whoa! How would you say that properly?
What do you mean?
I don't know how. I'm not saying it any other way. Okay, let's bounce out to our guy Fran Duffy. Bring in the franchise to tell us, and he's just shaking his head. He just can't. You can't believe what did
I walk into?
Right.
You don't want
to know. So, Fran, hopefully you can get us on track here, and want to start off by looking at how the Broncos free agency, they went out and signed 3 big-time players, filled a need at safety, filled a need at inside linebacker, filled a need at tight end. I think when you look at this from a very basic perspective, you're like, oh, the Broncos have to get a running back in the first round now. Is it that obvious, or is it maybe too obvious that that's the case for the Broncos moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it felt like anytime Sean Payton stepped in front of a microphone from the time the Broncos were eliminated till now, he kind of went through the laundry list of the items that he wanted to address, and the only one that they haven't hit on yet is running back. And what I go back and forth on, guys, and I'd actually want to bounce this back to you. When you think of Sean Payton and what he wants with this offense, and part of it is going to have to do with what they think of Audric Estime, right? But what do you view in terms of like the ideal skill set in terms of what they want to search for? Because when I think of the Joker type of running back, I think all right, TreVeyon Henderson would be a great fit in Denver. But do they still need to get that type of guy, or do you feel like they want to get more of more of that early downs grinder to their Mark Ingram as opposed to a Darren Sproles or an Alvin Kamara type? It's going to be fascinating to see what they ultimately go for. But yeah, I would be shocked if one of their first 2 picks was not at that position.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I think it makes a lot of sense. And honestly, they probably need 2. Like, you need the Joker, you need the every down guy. I'm curious. Do you think that Omarion Hampton is going to be there for the 20th pick? Because if he is, it seems like that's one of the 2 or 3 guys who are going to be most likely to be a Bronco.
I do think that he's going to be there. I know that there's been some mock drafts. I know Mel Kiper has put Omarion Hampton to 12 to the Dallas Cowboys. I actually just finished up with our DLLS crew a few minutes ago, and we were like kind of talking through that. I do think that's a little bit rich, especially for a team like the Cowboys that do have needs elsewhere. Whereas Denver, look, you were a playoff team a year ago. You're Sean Payton. You addressed all these other needs in free agency. You were really aggressive on the pro market. So, maybe now you can get to the point where you can add in a player like Hampton. But, my guess is that Hampton will still be there. I think when you get to 20 overall.
I feel like in any other draft, Omarion Hampton is a second-round pick. Like, is this all the Saquon effect that everyone's like, all right, we got to go get a big running back here?
Yeah, I think that there's the cyclic nature of the run game, and now we're getting back. It's becoming more in vogue. I think that is probably the part of it, RK. And I think also there's something to be said for the fact that this is a really deep and talented running back class, and so how those 2 things kind of juxtaposed against each other are going to be very interesting, because if you are Sean Payton, if you are George Payton, you might be sitting there and saying, all right, like, yeah, Omarion Hampton, maybe he's one of the highest graded players on the board at a position of need. Let's do it. But then you start having the conversation of, all right, well, would we rather have this top flight safety or this top flight linebacker or this another offensive lineman? You can never have enough pass rushers, right? So you start having those conversations. Would you rather have that and whoever the running back is that we could, Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson, Henderson, whoever you want to talk about is that round 2 running back? Would you rather have that or Hampton, plus the player, in round 2 at one of those positions. So those are the conversations that they're going to have in these next, in the next 5.5, 6 weeks as they get closer to draft weekend.
So, Fran, to continue this running back conversation, I got a two-parter here for you. The first one is the dream of Ashton Jeanty falling to the Broncos at 20 completely dead. Is there no chance of that happening? And the second one is how many running backs are day one starters for the Broncos in this draft? Like, how many can be taken off the board, not just in the first round, not just in the second round, but like, could the Broncos get the 8th running back in the 3rd round and he's a starter? Like, how good is this class?
So I'm glad you phrased it that way, where it's like, could he be a starter for the Broncos? Because that, honestly, that's how all teams basically operate. Is all right. Well, is he a starter for us? Like, how does he impact us here for 2025, 2026, and beyond? And so I don't know if I go 8 deep. But there are a handful of players, and there's also the idea of like, all right, well, and that's why I brought up Estime, because maybe let's say if you view Estime as, hey, you know what, like he can be our early downs guy, essentially what Javonte was last year, but now we're getting more game-breaking ability from a guy like TreVeyon Henderson in year 1, and then in year 2, he's able to excel and then kind of turn into that feature back once he gets acclimated to the pro game. That might be a suitable answer, right? And then you feel a little bit better of taking Henderson. Maybe it's in a trade down, or maybe it's as early as 20. Who knows? But I think at the end of the day, there are going to be a handful of backs that you could kind of put that tag onto, Zach, and say, yeah, I feel good about this guy coming in and being that starter for the Broncos here as early as year 1.
And then, Fran, really quick, is the dream of Jeanty at 20, is that dead?
I think so. I think there's just been so much smoke about the Raiders, and it makes a ton of sense with the way that they've kind of operated here this offseason. Just going even from Pete Carroll's opening press conference saying, yeah, like at all the other places I've been, we've taken our time, we've been patient, we've built it up slow, and it was a few years. That's not the plan here. We are going to hit the ground running and try to compete right away. And so with that in mind, looking at all the other additions they've made this spring, the one piece that they haven't really addressed yet, has been running back. I know they went out and got Raheem Mostert, but I think he's certainly on the back 9 of his career. I think adding a guy like Ashton Jeanty would make a lot of sense for Pete Carroll, for him to be his Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, one of the things Sean has said is that, in a given draft, there might only be a couple of jokers. And George Payton said the same thing. It's kind of like finding the Loch Ness Monster, because there just aren't that many out there. There might only be a handful in the league. And, when you get that specific with the definition of, like, this is a running back who we can line up in the slot, and if he's covered by a safety, he's going to win. If he's covered by a linebacker, he's going to win. We're going there every time. How many of those guys, or who stands out as that sort of player to you in this draft?
Yeah, I mean, right at the top is certainly TreVeyon Henderson. That's the way that he was utilized for a lot of his career at Ohio State, and that was honestly like by going out and getting Judkins this last offseason and pairing him with Henderson, that allowed them to kind of deploy Henderson more often in that way. So you saw wide receiver screens, you saw him lined up outside and run sluggo routes, lined up outside the numbers against linebackers and DBs, and so I think that skill set certainly translates to that kind of role really, really well. I think you get to Brashard Smith, the running back from SMU. He would be the next guy that would pop up in my mind. A former receiver, played 4 years at receiver at the University of Miami, transferred to SMU this past season, became a running back. So he's got that versatile skill set. That would be another one that would come to mind there. LaQuint Allen from Syracuse. He's got some wide receiver ability, the ability to make some plays down the field. I don't know that it's quite to the level of Brashard Smith and Henderson, but I think he's got shades of that kind of a skill set. Then the other names, I guess you were throwing Dylan Sampson from Tennessee, Trevor Etienne from Georgia, DJ Giddens from Kansas State, Jaden Blue from Texas. That would be another one I would definitely put in there. That's a guy that it was one of the faster 40 times at the combine at the running back spot. So I think when you look at, there are a handful of guys. It's just going to be the tiering of that, but it's certainly Henderson at the top.
What's the buzz on Matthew Golden right now, especially compared to where it was before the combine?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think when you're looking at Golden, it seems like he's a lock for the first round, and it seems like he's a lock for the top 25 picks. This wide receiver group is fascinating. Depending on who you talk to around the NFL, around the industry, you're going to get different pecking orders from every person. And so now it's just going to become a beauty is in the eye of the beholder type of situation. If you are the Dallas Cowboys at 12, do you want Matthew Golden to pair with CeeDee Lamb? Would you rather have Tetairoa McMillan to pair with CeeDee Lamb? How would that sort out? That might be different than what the Pittsburgh Steelers want, right? You just go out, you get DK Metcalf, you have George Pickens. You probably want somebody that's better working in the middle of the field. That might be a Emeka Egbuka, right, as opposed to Matthew Golden. And that's why you just kind of get into what is going to work for that specific team. And so it's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out. I think everybody kind of universally says, okay, Travis Hunter, if he embraces if he just wants to be a receiver, he's wide receiver 1 for everybody. And then 2, 3, 4 after that, it's going to be different. And Luther Burden continues to fly under the radar. I don't know why the shine is kind of worn off on him, but that guy is just so dynamic. And when I think of players that Sean Payton has excelled with in the past, he reminds me of Brandon Cooks, who the Saints traded up to take Brandon Cooks out of Oregon State a few years back. I think that there are shades of Cooks there when you look at Luther Burden.
And final one for you, Fran, because we know you got to go, but Tetairoa McMillan, staying on the wide receiver topic there, a guy that would be totally different than I think the other guys that you've mentioned. Is he also a dream pick to the Broncos at 20? Like, is there any chance he falls there? And then would he fit in this offense with Sean Payton? And would he complement Courtland Sutton well? Or do you think that would be bad news for Courtland if they end up drafting him?
My comp for T-Mac is Courtland. So, I think that would be something to certainly look at. But look, you look at the players that they have acquired, the players that they've kind of put together. It seems like Sean Payton wants these big oak trees, on the outside for Bo Nix to be able to throw to. And so I do think that T-Mac would fit. I don't think that would be a particularly good look long-term for Courtland Sutton in his long-term stay there in Denver. But I think that, he would definitely make sense. I do think there's a possibility that he's there on the board at 20. I know I've seen him mocked there a couple of times. And to me, honestly, it would make some sense for the Denver Broncos to go that way. I know Deshaun Valley had a nice rookie season, but what is his long-term upside? I think at the end of the day, adding a player like T-Mac into the fold to pair with Bo Nix, that would be a prudent decision there for Sean Payton and George Payton.
Man, the franchise helping build the Broncos back up and keeping them going. Thank you so much, Fran. Love your insight, and we look forward to catching up with you next week.
Appreciate it, guys. We'll talk next week.
See you, Fran.
Right on, man. Awesome insight there. Running back, wide receiver heavy, and it makes sense because the Broncos have filled every other hole.
I've got my dream draft.
Oh.
You want to save it?
Yeah, I want you to tell me about your dream draft after I tell you and the people about our friends over at Raising Cane's this weekend when you're sitting on the couch. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I have either your lunch or your dinner figured out. It's Raising Cane's. And you can order through their mobile app so that you don't miss much of March Madness. And over at Raising Cane's, they've got the craveable box combo, which make dreams come true with their chicken fingers that are hand battered, cooked to order. Every crinkle cut fry comes from grade A premium potatoes. They've got the Texas toast with the butter on it, and they've got the delicious coleslaw. And of course, you got to get cane sauce. Whatever you get, a sandwich, just chicken tenders, just fries, you got to get the cane sauce with it, or chicken fingers, you got to get the cane sauce with it right there. Cane sauce is made in restaurant every day, making the full box combo special. And you can get your box combo today and make it a craveable dream reality. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love. We love it. We know you're going to love it too, especially for March Madness this weekend.
Also, shout out to Shady Rays. You may not need them this weekend because if you're like me, you'll be inside all weekend watching college basketball. But it's about that time of year where you need to stock up on sunglasses. Make sure you have the right style. The ones that you have might be like 4 years out of style. It's time to go on to Shady Rays, check out what's new, what's going on, and get yourself a new pair. And then here's the best part. And I just know Henry can relate to this one.
Oh.
You break them, you lose them. Shady Rays is going to send you a new pair. And I just know you've broken or lost a couple pairs of sunglasses in your life.
Once. I put them on top of my car when I was putting sunscreen on before training camp practice.
Yep.
Came back, they were gone.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Someone just
Snatched.
jacked them.
Snatched.
They're good.
And also, I was wondering if it was wind also.
Could have been wind.
Yeah.
If it was
snatched
today,
or
Last
wind.
night,
Yeah.
I almost lost all my patio furniture.
Yeah, I thought I lost a fence in my car today driving. It was bad.
Jeez. Yeah. So anyways, whether they blow off your head in the wind or you just like sit on them because you're clumsy, you're covered over at Shady Rays. They'll send you a brand new pair. And you can get 35% off polarized sunglasses from Shady Rays by using the code DNVR at shadyrays.com.
All right, Ryan. Well, shout out to the Toyota chat for everyone tuning in. Although, Ryan, you just had people flame me again today. I got flamed yesterday. You had people flame me again. Even though people are flaming me, hit us with a thumbs up. We appreciate it. We love everyone tuning in with us.
I was under the weather yesterday, so I'm sitting just in bed watching the show, just like yelling at the TV.
You're making me under the weather today now.
You are doing better.
Again.
The poll started, it was 97% to 3%.
Okay.
77-23
Let's
now.
go. Shout out to the 23% right there. Appreciate you guys. And guys, let's just be a little more vocal in the Toyota chat. Let's, show me the support. Yesterday was tough for me, but Ryan, you can bring me out of this by telling me about a dream draft for the Broncos.
Yeah, like just talking to Fran, I've seen the light.
Wow.
This is what I need from the Broncos in round 1 and 2. Round 1, Matthew Golden.
Okay.
Again, you watch him on tape and you see, this is the most reliable, sharpest route runner, most separation of anyone on Texas. There's supposed to be 2 other guys faster than him on the team.
Yep.
Turns out he was also the fastest one. And he was the best at everything else. Hands, route running, separation, contested catches, all of that. You take Matthew Golden, and then in the second round, you get TreVeyon Henderson.
Oh, my God. You have me with TreVeyon Henderson. I like TreVeyon Henderson so much that I'm okay with the Broncos using number 20 on him. That's how much I like him. I think he is Alvin Kamara. And with Sean Payton, oh, my gosh, I'm so down for that. So you get him in the second round? Oh, give me a break. Yep,
I just can't envision a world where 3 running backs go in the first round.
Especially in the top 20?
Well, no, I'm not picking TreVeyon at 20. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll take him at 33. Okay. Jump up in the first to get the first pick of the second round. Wasn't that the Javonte Williams move?
Yes. Yep.
I'm totally cool with that. But I wouldn't go as rich as 20 for a running back. I really wouldn't pick a running back in the first round unless I had like a top 5 pick and it was Saquon Barkley or someone of that nature. To me, if you got those 2 guys, it would just be the offense is complete.
What else could you want? I mean, you have the line set. You now have a tight end with Engram that would help your wide receiver room out a ton. You'd have all your starters there, and you have your running back, literally, and obviously you have your quarterback.
This would just be. I'll be over the moon.
I think Sean said, we're going to spend in free agency specifically on the defensive side of the ball so that there are no holes. Literally, there's not a single hole on defense. And he said, and then I get the draft. So I wouldn't be surprised if the first 3 picks are on offense. But I think this is really setting up for the first round pick and second round pick both being offense.
I love it. And I also would be okay with Luther Burden. And I think I would also be okay with Tetairoa McMillan. The shine has really worn off of both of those last 2 guys.
Yep.
And I don't really know why. Tetairoa I can probably speak to more than any of these other guys just because he's been in the conference with the Buffs for all these years. By the end of last year, he was like a presumed wide receiver 1.
Yep.
Yes.
Then, of course, Travis Hunter came, stole his thunder, and everyone else's. And he moved down to second.
Yep.
And then Arizona losing their coach, Jed Fish, and bringing in just an absolute slappy in Brent Brennan really just tanked his stock and tanked Noah Fafita's stock as well, even though he's an undersized quarterback. They just had no fluidity, nothing good going on offense. But I'll tell you this, when I went to Big 12 Media Days last year, and this isn't as important as what happens on the field, there was NFL players, future NFL players all over the place. Ollie Gordon, Taj Brooks. There's like an edge from Kansas State. I can't remember his name. When I saw Tetairoa McMillan, my jaw hit the floor.
Yep.
That dude looks like a defensive end, and he's like a bouncy wide receiver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to me, the Courtland comp is actually underselling him just a little bit.
He's
not
bigger.
to undersell Courtland.
Yeah.
He's bigger. I think he's a little bit faster, at least in game
Be curious. Yeah.
action. And pre-injury Courtland, I would say, is comparable in terms of like the jump ball abilities. So I really like Tetairoa, and I think that he got done dirty by just a terrible, terrible coach.
What's
And
insane?
at the same time, he still has 1,300 yards and is a first-team All-American.
Yeah, and he also had like a 300-yard, 5-touchdown game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just wasn't the 1,400 yards with the 10 touchdowns the year before. So, yeah, I mean, he's incredible. I mean, he to me is like, there's that tier prospects at the top where it's just like, they're freaks. Like, it's Travis Hunter, it's Ashton Genty, it's Tetairoa McMillan, and I guess Abdul Carter's probably in there too, but even that one I'm a little bit iffy. Like, those are like the special guys in this draft. And the fact that like there's a chance that T-Mac slips outside the top 10 is pretty crazy. And so for mock drafts to have him at 20, really crazy. I think I would love him whenever you have a guy like Matthew Bolden who looks so polished and then goes and runs a 4.29. Like that's tough to figure out what to do with. It's like Henry Ruggs, where at the time Henry Ruggs certainly wasn't seen as the best receiver in that draft. But with the blazing fast 40 time, it's like, sometimes you just have to do it. So Matthew Golden, Tetairoa McMillan, even to go back to those running backs, like honestly, I think I would rather have TreVeyon Henderson than Omarion Hampton. Like I
would too.
Yeah, and that's just where I'm at. And it's always scary to say that because then you get clipped and 2 years later it's like, well, look at these two guys. And so you fall the NFL train, that's what it is. NFL train says Omarion Hampton. TreVeyon Henderson though, again, I don't know that you need to be doing it 20. That's the guy who I'd much rather have, though.
Well, and so when it goes to these wide receivers, Ryan, you say that you can't see 3 running backs being taken in the draft. Well, how Tetairoa McMillan falls to the Broncos at 20 as being like a top 5 pick a year ago, now he's to the Broncos at 20, is because teams like Matthew Golden, obviously Travis Hunter is going to go off the board, so that's 1, potentially. Matthew Golden, that's 2, and then all of a sudden, in the first 19 picks, there's already been 2 wide receivers. So the teams that were super wide receiver desperate, that's how McMillan falls to the Broncos there. But what's interesting is there's also another reason why he might fall. There are some people that don't feel the way that you guys and Fran feel about him. In fact, just yesterday, Steve Smith said on his podcast, he's watched tape. He doesn't see the special part about McMillan at all.
Which is crazy.
And he's obviously a wide receiver, knows the position well. You take it with a grain of salt, but if Steve Smith is seeing that, I would imagine some other teams in the NFL might be seeing that as well, but not every team by any means. But it is interesting how not everyone's all in on him because like you said, like a year ago, I was just hearing about this guy and it's like, oh my gosh, he's a top 5 pick. As a receiver, that's incredibly special. That's Jamar Chase good. That's Calvin Johnson good. And maybe there are some things that people don't really like about him that would allow him to slip.
I think there's some tape out from last year that is not great from Tetairoa McMillan. And I would prefer to give the credit in this case to the Buffs and Colton Hood, who drew his assignment in his first start as a redshirt freshman because Travis Hunter was injured and absolutely clamped him. And that's not what you want to see from a guy who's going to be a future first round pick. But I also think Colton Hood is a future NFL football player as well. But there was just weird energy around Arizona's football program last year. Like there was no aura at all with that team. They fell off, and I just think the whole team kind of got like sent into the world of suck.
Yeah. Shout out Emmanuel.
And so I kind of give him a break for that and go back to the year before where he was just dominating.
Yeah.
I mean, unguardable.
Unguardable. And again, like Travis Hunter, best cornerback in the draft, best cornerback in several drafts. There was that play in the side of the end zone where Tetairoa McMillan reaches out, grabs the ball, and it looked the exact same as the play Drake London made against Christian Gonzalez, I think in the other end zone. I could be wrong.
Opposite corners.
Yeah, but same field, other end zone, where you're just like, wait, how does Christian Gonzalez get beat by this guy? And it's like, well, he's 6'5", it happens. Now you look, Christian Gonzalez, an all-pro. Drake London just had 1,200 yards. Like, it's the same thing. The fact that he's out there, there are multiple clips of him beating Travis Hunter. That kind of speaks for itself because that wasn't a thing that happened very often.
Actually, if you make a one-handed catch in the corner of the end zone at Folsom Field, it's a good sign for the rest of your career. Because I also saw AJ Green make one of the most insane catches I've ever seen in my life in that area, in the other corner.
And in terms of being like not exactly Courtland, in terms of like not being Courtland Sutton, AJ Green might be a good comp for him. Just like a very lengthy. I mean, he's 6'4", 6'5", 200 and I think 13 pounds is what he weighed in at. 219. Yep. Court's 6'3", 220. So like little stronger. Where McMillan is just like a lengthy guy, kind of maybe the AJ Green. But this brings me.
Oh wait, one last thing I want to say about Tetairoa.
Yeah,
I have a lot of respect for the way, honestly, both he and Noah Fafita handled last offseason. They were throwing a big curveball when they came in together as like best friends. They really wanted to play for Jedfish. They built something amazing underneath him. And then he bolts for Washington. And according to reports, he didn't tell them before he was going to take the job. And he just kind of expected that they would go with him. And so, he comes in and he's just like, all right, like, you guys coming with me to Washington? And both of them were kind of just like, nah, man. Like, we're staying here. And so they stuck it out. And sadly, I think it did hurt them.
Yeah.
But it was a very, very rare display of loyalty in college football in 2025 that I actually give them a little boost for it, especially like Tet, who's now entering the draft. I have a lot of respect for the fact that he was like, no, I'm sticking this out. I have a job to finish here at Arizona.
Yeah, that's crazy that Jeb thought leaving and not telling him was going to be a good recruiting tool to bring him.
As if like every other coach in the country isn't making sure his guys are coming with it before he leaves.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like, he sucked at Washington last year.
Yep.
And if he would have had those two guys, he wouldn't have.
No.
So all you had to do is go to him and be
That's
like, hey,
crazy.
they're like offering me some crazy stuff. I can get you guys some really good NIL deals.
Right.
Let's go together. And if they say no,
Jeez.
then maybe you don't even take the job.
Yeah, definitely. But and that is character right there. So that's good to see. You got something?
Is there more on Tetairoa? We still talking?
Yes.
One more. So he also has the short legs. Like that's what Sean really likes is like the tall receivers who have short legs because that's what makes them shifty. That was like the selling part on Devon Vele is like it isn't just like he's slow with these long clunky like trying to figure out where he's going. I spent all morning looking through these pictures of him and comparing him to Devon Vele.
Scoping
I
his
believe
legs.
yeah, it's again it's kind of tough, but I think his legs are certainly less than half of his height.
Yeah.
You just go head to foot. I think that makes him a Sean Payton guy.
All right.
I like that. But if the Broncos draft him, like Fran kind of said, his comp to him is Courtland Sutton. Is this bad news for Courtland Sutton's future with the team? We very much expect Courtland Sutton to get an extension, to want an extension for sure. I mean, he wanted one last year, didn't really get it. So he's going to want one this year. Would this be them drafting Courtland Sutton's replacement where maybe Courtland's still on the team this year, but they just don't give him that extension? Or do you see these two being on the field together long term?
I see it long term,
Me too.
personally. That's very Sean Payton.
Yes.
Any other coach, I would probably say, like, you don't need this many centers on your basketball team. But Sean, he wants to play big.
Totally.
And a lot of his routes and a lot of his designs are a wide receiver using their body to block off a smaller corner. And imagine that once in a while you have an Aqib Talib who can take on any big receiver. No one has two that can take on a big receiver.
That's
like
what happened
that.
to the Broncos against the Bengals.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And so you're creating a mismatch for at least one of them at all points. And then, the Joker is all about getting a mismatch with a second big wide receiver like that. You're getting a mismatch on every play.
And then you also see like draft analysts like Lance Zierlein made a case that where he's going to be at his best potentially is as like a mismatch in the slot against smaller slot corners, that could be where he really wins. Again, it's like that Michael Thomas thing. That's a lot of what happened there. I think, again, like we know Sean likes big receivers. I think there's also the other piece of the Bengals thing is, would you prefer to have somebody who's a little bit smaller? Maybe, but you don't have that guy. Like he's not on the team. You could let Courtland walk and then go find a replacement. But to me, I think you have something and you might as well run with it. Financially, it makes sense because Court's going to last year, his deal. Obviously, Tetairoa McMillan will have 4 years. Mims will have 2 years and Franklin Vale have 3 years. So you tack 2 years onto Court's deal and there'll be 1 year where his deal and Marvin Mims overlap, but that'll be super cheap for Marvin because it's the first year of his extension. It's just assuming you get it. And then you have Court as a free agent at the same time as Troy Franklin, Devon Vele, and you can kind of figure things out from there. So I think it all works perfectly.
I don't think the Bengals is a good comp for what this will be for the Broncos. I don't think the Bengals are tall.
Oh no, I agree. It's because going back to the conversation we had about maybe that was it wasn't the draft pod. That was basically saying like, yeah, when the Broncos gave Quinn Miners the extension, there's so many people saying don't pay a guard top tier money because
you're
that's
talking
just
about
bad
paying
value.
2 receivers.
Yeah,
okay,
and so
I see.
But again, like that's the guy you have and build it. Like there's no option to be like, actually, we'd like to pay a tackle this money. You just don't have that tackle. Like that's not an option. It's the same thing where it's like you have Courtland Sutton, you have in this world Tetairoa McMillan. Like why not pay him?
Well, and as for the height thing with the Bengals, obviously Jamar Chase isn't a big wide receiver in the sense of Courtland Sutton, but you're not going to put Pat Surtain, who's normally your specialist on big wide receivers, on T. Higgins. You're going to put him on Jamar Chase.
Yep.
And so you're still picking your poison of like, you got to put a second wide receiver who's not going to be a big specialist, and you got to take that mismatch.
But think about this, though. you would have 6'3" Courtland Sutton. You'd have 6'4/5" Tetairoa McMillan, and then you'd also have 6'5" Evan Engram. You throw Evan Engram into this mix too. That is insane height. And Sean talked about last year how much he loved the height in the Broncos receiver room. So I could see this being good for the long term. But if I'm Courtland Sutton and on draft night, thinking about it from his perspective, and they draft Tetairoa McMillan in the first round, I'm not excited about it. I'm a little more nervous about it. So I would disagree with you guys a little bit that it is good for the future for Court. I definitely think it could be, but I'd just be a little nervous about that because also Sean Payton just typically doesn't invest much in receivers. And maybe that's why I don't really see this one being a realistic possibility for the Broncos, is because I think there's a lot of different ways Sean Payton would go with this before getting not only a receiver, but a receiver that's similar to one he has on the roster right now. We had Fran mention how he drafted
Brandon Cooks.
That was a decade ago. And then they immediately traded him 1 year after that. We haven't seen Sean Payton use a high draft pick on a receiver since then. Well, I guess they took Michael Thomas in the second round, but we haven't seen him use a first round pick since then. And he's a guy that gets Marquise Colston in the seventh round and turns him into a 1,000-yard receiver. Well, we saw him take a seventh round pick in Devon Vele last year and turn him into a good receiver in hopes he has more in the tank there. So a dream pick, I actually don't think this is a dream pick in the Broncos perspective.
My dream pick is Matthew Golden.
Okay. I can get behind that. But again, like Matthew Golden, I guess Luther Burden, you would say you already have that in Marvin Mims, but there's some of that with Matthew Golden Mims too. So as much as like you have the Tetairoa McMillan at home, there is, that's the way receivers work sometimes. It's like you kind of have your big guys and your small guys, and they have a few of both. I think it'd be bad for Court just because like they're just not over reliant on him anymore. Like right now, if you don't have Court going into a game, you don't have anything. Like I'm excited about Marvin Mims. The guy had 39 catches last year, though. Like, yeah. So that's where it hurts Court most, is just that they aren't desperate to have him anymore.
I do think Marvin. I disagree. I think Marvin's a staple in this offense now. And if you look at the whole season as a whole, and you just look at the stat sheet, it was not the season that you wanted. It was not a breakout season. You look at once they finally started using Marvin creatively, and Sean admitted this. Once I finally started moving him around the field, he took off 4 touchdowns in the final 2 games of the season, including, 2 when you really needed it against the Bengals. I do think that but obviously Courtland's a staple too, but I think Marvin's a staple as well.
Absolutely. I just think that we need more things to scare opposing defenses.
Happy birthday, Marvin.
No doubt. Yeah. Yes. Happy birthday, Marvin. After you throw him under the bus, you wish him.
No, I think I'm really excited. He's a great player.
Not thrown under the bus.
It's just if that's your wide receiver one with Devon Vele, Troy Franklin going to a game, that's not.
No, and that's why their Broncos aren't going to move on from Court. That's why I fully believe that they give him extension, because he is a key piece to this team right now. There was another mock draft released by Daniel Jeremiah that had Omarion Hampton being the Broncos pick, and after listening to you guys, would you not like that pick?
First, I want to get this pronunciation sorted out. Both of you guys are saying Omarion. I think it's Omarion.
Okay.
I just want to make sure we have that right.
Okay.
I would not like that. To me, not dynamic enough side to side for a first round pick. Not to make a Javonte Williams comp, because I think they're different, and I don't want to helmet scout just because they're both from North Carolina. But Javonte Williams, that's the place where he lacked, right? He wasn't going to beat you left or right. He was going to beat you straight. And that's kind of what I see there. And I think he's really exciting as a second round pick. At 20, just feels really, really rich for me.
That's exactly, anytime we talk about it, and I feel like I've had this conversation with Henry and Dre, that's what I say too. He just gives me Javonte Williams. And Javonte Williams, don't get me wrong, was a really good running back before the injury, but a guy that's going to completely change your offense. I also want to get another guy in the draft if I'm getting him. And if you're using a first round pick on a running back, should you feel like you also want to get someone else in the first round? Probably not. So he's a slightly bigger Javonte Williams to me, which is a good player, but that game changer at pick 20.
And his top speed, I think, is a lot higher than Javonte's.
Yeah.
But I can just keep coming back to that word dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel the exact same way. You want a game breaker at running back in the first round. Not sure he's that.
He's like it's like a rhinoceros, like a buffalo. Just like you give him the ball, you send him in a direction. Like there isn't going to be any creativity or anything, but he's just going to go that way, and he's going to go that way pretty fast. And he's going to be tough to bring down.
Yeah.
Which, again, there's value there, but I don't know. Like maybe little Melvin Gordon. Like it's just it doesn't get me super excited in the first round, like you said. Like I don't think he's going to be like Derrick Henry dominant doing that sort of thing. Like obviously he doesn't have the size in the first place, and that's kind of what you need to justify a first round pick there. So I don't know. Like he breaks a bunch of tackles. You got to give him credit for that, and he would probably be an upgrade, like bigger Audric Estime, taller Audric Estime. But I don't know.
I don't want to be labeled as an Omarion Hampton hater.
I know, neither do I.
But I don't know if he's in my top 3 or maybe even top 4 running backs.
I think that's fair. Again, the NFL, a lot of people agreed with you 2 months ago, but the NFL train decided he's right there. In part because reporters are saying like, oh, teams like him as much as Ashton Genty, which to me is just, it boggles my mind.
Like, no, why is no one talking about Caleb Johnson?
Yeah.
Iowa.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know.
Probably,
To me, there's
probably
like a
doesn't have the same top speed.
To me, it's Ashton Genty in a class of his own.
Yep.
And then like a massive tier 2.
Yep.
That I'm just like, why would I go into the first round when there's like 8 other really good running backs?
And that's why I go back to TreVeyon Henderson, because he's the one of those guys who is unique.
Different, yeah.
Like he's the one who's tougher to find.
And here's why you go in the first round for another one of those running backs is because they're not going to be around at pick 51 for the Broncos. And pick 51, you'd have to make a pretty sizable trade up to get to pick 35, 38. I think this is where the Broncos drafted Javonte Williams. So are you willing to take a player in the first round at 20 and then move on from your third round to trade up with that second round pick to go and get that guy and pass up on a third round pick, which we know can be really good players? Or are you saying we want all 3 picks? We're just going to get the guy who we think is game breaking, and that is TreVeyon Henderson at 20, regardless of if Omarion Hampton's on the board or not.
Fair enough.
And then what probably happens is you wind up going and getting Quinshon Judkins, and you're just running back the Ohio State backfield because they are a pretty decent pairing together. Or maybe it is Caleb Johnson after that.
I think TreVeyon Henderson is a 3-down back. I think he is.
Maybe.
Especially, I mean, you have Audric Estime, so if you need the big bruising back, you have him right there. But I think TreVeyon Henderson, is Alvin Kamara a 3-down back?
Yes.
Yeah. That's exact. But when you think of him, you kind of think well, he's more of a pass catcher and he's just a speed guy. Mm-hmm. But no, in reality, he's not. He's an every down back, and TreVeyon Henderson is big enough. He's not Darren Sproles. He's not 5'6", 180 pounds. No, he is. He has NFL size to be a 3-down back.
It's just tough when you haven't seen it, is the thing, because he's always been splitting time. I think last year he peaked with 183 carries. I have too many tabs open, so I can't see where the Broncos are at. And that's where even if you could make him do it, you're probably helping the longevity by using him in rotation, and you're probably getting more out of him in any given game by keeping him fresh. So I still think you need somebody to rotate in.
If you use a first or second round pick on him, which is where he's going to go, he is your guy. You're fully committing to him. You're not feeling like you have to draft a guy in the second round, I don't believe, with him.
There's so much running back talent in this draft, though. I wouldn't be complaining if the Broncos took 2 running backs in their first 4 or 5 picks.
And I think that could happen, especially that
give me
fourth pick.
Scattaboo in the 4th.
Well, and one of the guys that I think we really need to keep our eye on is Brashard Smith out of SMU, who Fran brought up today, a converted receiver. We're talking about a converted receiver who plays running back now, who is fast and elusive. Doesn't that sound like a perfect Sean Payton Joker right there? That's a guy who you can get in the 4th, 5th round. So you pair him with the first or second round running back. But one more thing about TreVeyon. You brought up character with McMillan. This guy has character. Anyone that talks about this Ohio State program talks about how good of a dude this is, how much he's loved by the coaches, how much he's loved by the players. And then there's a character thing that you can look at too. Last year in the transfer portal, Judkins wanted to go to Ohio State. And the coaches said, before we accept you, because you're such a good running back and you're going to take carries and touches away from TreVeyon, we want to talk to him. And he said, Coach, do you think it's going to help the team? He said, the coach said, yeah, I do think so. And he said, then let's do it, because I want to win a championship and make this team better, even if it's going to take away from my stats. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
hey, the character is right there without a doubt.
Now he's got a ring to show for it.
Yep, exactly. In the top 2 pick round. Top two round pick. Yeah, exactly. Any final thoughts before we hit some super chats?
No.
Nope.
Luis says, did the cap disappear if Bo won Rookie of the Year? Oh, okay. We're getting back to segment 1. Did the cap disappear if Bo won Rookie of the Year? Would you be pounding the table to pay him $50 million plus right now? Everything comes in due time. Well,
Not allowed.
Yeah, that's just simply not allowed. So that one you couldn't do. You have to. So how it is undrafted players, you can sign a new contract after 2 years in the NFL. Drafted guys, you have to wait until after their 3rd season's done to give them a new contract. But yeah, I mean, me and probably everyone else is probably going to be saying, give Bo the big deal in just 2 years from now, which is crazy.
I say wait until after the 5th year, tag him again.
Yeah. And then he leaves because he absolutely hates your organization for mishandling his
Just like
contract
T. Higgins,
situation. Right?
Yep, just like T. Higgins.
Yeah,
or
made him-
more like Myles Garrett.
Yeah, made him the highest paid player. Overpaid him. Yeah.
$28 million a
I'm
year.
cool with
for T.
overpaying
Higgins.
in year 7.
Yeah.
That's going to cost you $120 million a season at that point in time. O-Rod
No,
says...
he's gonna get his money as soon as he can.
Yes,
as long as he
exactly.
stays on this arc.
Yep, exactly. O-Rod says, will there ever be a DNVR app coming out in the future? Also, looking at Caleb... well, let's answer that one first.
Potentially.
Potentially.
It's been one of those things that's like, it's been on the back burner for a long time, and just lots of things keep coming to the front burner.
Yep.
So it's just at a nice, level 2 simmer back there.
Wow. I like that.
Level
So
2.
keep your eyes out, and long term maybe. He says also, looking at Caleb Johnson highlights, he reminds me a lot of Marvin Mims, the way he just glides with the ball in his hands.
Well, he moves smoothly, and I think that's why I can't remember what his 40 time was, but it was
Who's
really
this?
disappointing.
Caleb
Johnson, because you watch him run and you're like, oh, this guy flies, and you get the 40 time and you're like, oh, it's like 4.51 or something like that. Like that's not really what you see. He is just like this big 230 pounder who's running guys over. But I really like him.
Remember how I said I wish no one knew about the money anymore the other day?
Yep.
I think I just want to get rid of 40 times too.
They're so stupid.
What about Matthew Golden's?
Again,
yeah,
that
so
one
you want it when it helps.
that one was already like, I already loved Matthew Golden.
Yeah. Okay. Me too.
And then that just made me like, wait, what? He's also that fast?
4.57 for Caleb Johnson.
That's just, he's outrunning the entire Big Ten.
That's honestly, yeah. That's,
Like, how does that make any sense? I don't know.
Yeah, and I said this right before or right after the combine. I care so little about that. If you're going to change your draft evaluation based off of what happens at the combine, outside of weigh-ins, if a guy weighs in and his college has been lying for him the whole time and he weighs in or he's way shorter, sure, you take those. But 40 times and stuff, is he fast on tape? If he is, then he's a fast football player.
Yeah.
If he's not, then he probably just either messed up or he didn't focus on running without pads on and without a football and just didn't focus on things that aren't important.
And as for Matthew Golden, I actually hate it because you probably could have got him in the second or maybe even later. I mean, no one was talking about Matthew Golden. He kind of went off in the college football playoffs too, and still no one was really talking about him.
Yep. It's very true. Speaking of 40 times, what do you guys think is going to happen with Jalen Milroe? Today he went out and ran a 4.38 to a 4.44, depending on who clocked it. What's going to happen here?
Let's start with so what I saw was it was reported as 4.44, and then Bama said they clocked it at a 4.38.
And then I saw someone
Did anybody else?
I don't remember, maybe it was Albert Brewer or someone else say he talked to people there and it was between those times.
Okay.
Was what they had.
Can
Wasn't
we do
just
something
Bama
today
lying.
with a stopwatch? We can see how hard it is to stop
It's
it.
hard.
Like if I try to get 4.38, or we'll just find his run and we'll time it. We'll hand time it.
Yeah.
So you'll see one of us will get 4.38, one of us will get 4.46.
You have a hand timer?
and we'll both.
I do. So the key
Wow.
is you don't use your thumb. This finger's quicker.
All right.
Learned it from a Smart guy.
So you have 25 seconds.
pro
Tell
day.
me.
Surprised you didn't learn it from a girl.
Oh.
Tell you what.
What do you think of Jalen Milroe?
If I needed a quarterback and Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders weren't there, then I would be interested in taking a flyer on him.
Okay. That's nice.
What about
I thought
Jackson
you were gonna
Dart?
say.
Huh?
What about Jackson Dart?
Absolutely not.
Oh. Any reason?
I just don't like him.
Okay.
Wow. Well, I've liked this show with you guys. That's gonna wrap it up for us today.
Taysom Hill?
Potentially. Broncos?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about it.
Taysom's so big.
That's going to do it for us today. We'll be back with Benny Fowler is joining us tomorrow. Enjoy March Madness starting in the morning at 10 a.m. We'll be back with you at 11 a.m. Make sure to tune in. We appreciate everyone. Hit us with a thumbs up on the way out. We'll see you tomorrow, 11 a.m. DNVR Broncos Podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.